For an entire year, I was on a quest for healing, but I found myself stuck in this loop, paying for things that weren't actually working for me. I began getting so sick of everybody's advice. It seemed like I kept hearing two different things. On the one hand, people would say, Sarah, healing takes time, just wait it out. But I didn't feel like I was going in the right direction. I didn't feel like I was making any progress. And on the other hand, people would say, oh, you're in too deep. You're going to have surgery in order to fix this. Both answers, both solutions, both sets of advice didn't seem right for me. And I remember one day Peter saying, I think you're going to have to figure this out on your own. I think you have the solution. And he was right. At that time, I quit going to physical therapy. I was working on healing a disc herniation in my back that I had been struggling with for 6 months that had left me unable to walk. As a 30-something-year-old woman who is very active and health conscious, that was a wild awakening, which I know now was the universe asking me to slow down and do the inner work. So I stopped going to physical therapy because I really felt like it was not making a difference at all. Even though I had paid for 4 months and I was only about halfway through, but every time I would go, I was in so much pain. That really was the wake-up call for me to realize that I had to start discerning what was for me and what was for somebody else. Just because other people had success with something didn't mean that I was going to have success with something. And that really planted the seed that the same is true for business. Just because all of these people are having success running their business a certain way doesn't mean that that's the way for me. And even if I have success, I need to start defining what success is for me. I can't just base my success off of money and metrics and different things that actually don't mean anything to me. So that was the first step, waking up to what wasn't working. The second thing I did was I slowed down so that I could tune in. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was so busy, I couldn't even hear my inner guidance. I don't think I even knew what truth was. I was operating solely on survival, going from one thing to the next. For an entire year, Peter and I didn't travel. We didn't go anywhere. Our weekends were spent at home. And honestly, even during the week, I would spend hours in my backyard reading, meditating, praying, asking for guidance, asking for support on my next steps. I needed some time. It was the first time in a long time, probably in 10 years, that I started questioning things. I started asking, is this how I want my life to go? Is this how I want to operate? I started opening up to new ideas. I started questioning ideas and beliefs of other people that I had taken on as my own. This was the first time that I had done some self-reflection. This was the start of the inner work, slowing down though, so I could actually hear my inner guidance, so I could reconnect with my soul for the first time in a long time. The third thing that I did was I became an observer of my thoughts. Instead of me believing that the thoughts that I were thinking were me, I became aware that the thoughts were just thoughts and that I could be aware of them. And I didn't have to do anything with them and I didn't have to make them mean anything about me. During this time, I was in a lot of pain, more pain than I had ever faced in my entire life, physical pain in my body. And I noticed one day that although I was in pain, I was suffering a lot. It was hard to get through each day. And the suffering, I realized, was optional. I didn't have to suffer. Yes, I was in pain, but I actually wasn't in pain every minute of every single day. But I was making myself suffer for the majority of it. And the suffering came from the thoughts that I was thinking. And the thoughts that I were thinking had to do with a story my mind was making up. And so when I realized that actually that's just a story my mind is making up, but I am separate from that. I am removed from that. And I can just observe that. And I also have the power to change that story or shut it down by coming back to the present moment. It's very empowering. It was like this game I was playing with myself where I was like, okay, sit down, meditate, lay down, relax. Oh, oh, there's the story, there it's going. Okay, let's just watch it. Where is it going? Wow, that's wild. Wow, you really think that? Interesting mind, you know? I know for some, you guys might be like, oh, this is really crazy, Sarah. You sound crazy. I felt crazy at the time. But for some of you, you probably know what I'm talking about. And the story that my mind was playing was, oh my gosh, everybody's going to leave you, right? The fear of abandonment. Let me know if you struggle with that. I think that that is one of the core wounds that a lot of us face, right? And we have to heal in this lifetime or another lifetime if we don't do it in this lifetime or if we haven't done it in a past life. And so it was like, okay, because I wasn't able to walk at this time. And so I couldn't do the things that I was used to doing, going to yoga, doing breath work with friends, right? Going shopping, going out for coffee, all of the things. And so my mind was telling me this story of you're going to be all alone. Your friends are not going to want to hang out with you anymore. Peter's not going to want to be with you anymore. How are you going to go hiking? How are you going to go backpacking? How are you going to do all of these things? You're just going to be alone and in pain for the rest of your life. And as soon as I realized that that story was causing me so much suffering, I realized I need to come back to the present moment and I need to practice acceptance. Yes, I can't do those things right now, but who knows what the future holds. And I started practicing being extremely present. A lot of my clients often come to me and they're like, I don't love meditation. I have a hard time meditating. Well, one thing that is a great way to get the same benefits is just being present with what you're doing. So I would be laying in my backyard and I would just be looking at the grass and really being in the moment. When you're washing dishes, just being with the dishes. When you're going for a walk, just noticing what's around you, noticing your breath, each step, right? It can feel like kind of boring at first or actually kind of empowering, freeing, like open up a whole new world. Either way, it's definitely different than how I was operating before, because before I was really filling my time with noise and other people's thoughts and other people's opinions through podcasts, through videos, through advice, right? And so for the first time, in a long time, I was just present. And I was alone, aware of where my mind was, and I would just practice bringing it back, bringing it back, bringing it back, right? And that shifted things for me. That was one of the most empowering things that I did was take back control of my mind. The fourth thing that I did was I learned to ask for help, release control, and let people in. Now, the last one was very empowering. This one was very challenging because I had prided myself on being the strong one, being the one with the answers, being the one that everybody comes to for advice and feedback, the supporter. And so for me to then be the one who needed support was really challenging for my ego. At one point, I remember I couldn't make juice because standing for that long was too hard on my body. I couldn't cook for myself. Oh. And so I had to ask for help. I had to ask Peter to do things, and he was more than happy. And I think this is the thing that a lot of times, we're like, oh, they don't have anybody to help them. They don't know how to do it. They already do so much. Usually the reason that we're not getting the help that we desire is because we're not letting people in. For me, because I had really created this identity of being the strong one, the one with all the solutions, the one who can take care of herself. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I needed that in a lot of my life, but it also created a wall, a mask, a strong exterior that other people couldn't get through. Nothing could break it. And so I noticed after the fact, after I finally allowed people to help me, let people in, told them what I was going through, let them see me cry. I had never let people see me cry before, not really. As soon as I started doing that, I realized that opened up the pathway for deeper connection. It allowed my friends to talk to me about their own challenges, connect with me on a deep soul level that I hadn't felt before. Before, I had a lot of surface level conversations where it just seemed like everybody was doing fine. Everybody was doing great. Everybody had it all together, all figured out. And as soon as I started opening up about my challenges and asking for help, they started opening up to me. And all of a sudden, I felt closer to everyone in my life, and I like it a lot. And during this time, I experienced what is often considered an ego death. That is number 5, the death of the ego. And it's not that the ego actually dies, it's still there, but the old version of you, the version that you had thought you were your whole entire life up until this point, the part of you that identified as one way, strong beliefs, right? How you operate in the world, right? For me, being the strong one who knows all, started to crumble. And during this time, I had to show up and not have the solution for things, not know how it was going to go, show up for coaching calls with 20, 30, 40 people laying on the floor on my stomach because my body couldn't handle being able to sit up at this time. And I had to confront who I was without all of those labels. And it was terrifying, my friend. I'm not going to lie. It was terrifying. It was so uncomfortable because I knew I didn't care about all the things that I thought I cared about before. I knew that I was no longer those identities, but I didn't know where I was going. Often in my programs, we often call this the void, right? The space in between where you're like, I'm not that, but like, where am I going? Who am I? If I'm not that, who am I, right? All of the metrics, the vanity metrics, the working hard and being productive and making the most money, all of a sudden it didn't mean anything to me anymore. My motivation was just gone, right? My motivation at the time, what I thought was important, no longer mattered. And that can be really frightening and terrifying. The next step was love, learning to love myself unconditionally, learning to love myself, even if I didn't know what was coming next, where I was going. So anytime that I would want to judge myself, I would love myself. I would notice. I practice connecting with my heart, moving my energy into my heart space, being in my heart space more often, being more loving towards myself, but also being more loving towards other, and really realizing that it's not about perfection, right? I don't have to be perfect, but can I love myself in the in between? Can I love myself, flaws and all? And I think really learning about the soul and how I chose this life and this body, and the soul is eternal. It's going to go on and it's going to be in a different body. And so judging myself for this body just started to become very superficial and really started to seem like a waste of time. And realizing that the reason that you're here and I'm here is so that we can learn and grow and evolve and get better and help people, right? And try on different experiences and really feel the full range of emotions. It made me realize that if I'm judging myself for not having it all figured out, like that's so silly, because the reason I'm here is because I don't have it all figured out. I'm here on earth in this school to learn. And that made it so much easier to stop judging myself and others, realizing, oh, we're all just here learning and trying to figure it out and have a good time, have a little fun in the process and grow and make our souls happy so that when we move on to the next life, we don't have to go through these same lessons again. We can have even more fun or maybe try something else. That made it a lot easier to love myself. Number 7 is I started shifting my business to align with my values. And this transition was really nice because I used to be so big on hustle and funnels and really just doing it all. Some of my students, they'll remember this. I used to say the phrase, just do one more thing. One more thing will just move your business along a little bit. But then after doing all of this inner work, I realized those models, they don't work for most people. They work for a very select few, right? And it wasn't working for me anymore. I wanted to create something better. I wanted to create something that doesn't leave you feeling drained, that's more aligned with your values, right? So now how I work is my work is organic. It is guided by my inner voice. It's soul aligned. I always run decisions through my heart to make sure it feels good, to see if it is true for me. Just because it's true for somebody else, just because somebody else wants me to do something, is it actually what I want to do, right? Does it feel good to me? I'm no longer doing live launches. Those don't feel good to me. I don't have these intense deadlines anymore. Pretty much anything that doesn't feel good in my heart, doesn't feel good to me. And it's not that it doesn't feel good to me because of fear, because I look into fear. I observe fear. I see what's the fear really about? What's going on here? I don't let that dictate me. But if something just feels like it's not going to bring me joy, it's not going to help me grow, it's just going to feed my ego, I say no. This shift not only brought me back into peace, but it opened up a lot of doors in my business that I had always wanted to open, but I'd been trying to open them through force. And when I just released and aligned, the opportunities just started flowing my way. Maybe you've heard this before, but until you experience it, I feel like you're kind of like questioning it. So now, honestly, everything, it's just how does this feel? How does this feel in my being? Does this feel aligned for me? Okay, let me go into it. And I trust that I'm going to be taken care of. The opportunities are going to come, and they do, right? I'm not saying that I don't show up for my business or create a plan or a schedule or things like that. I do, but it's not set in stone. I set the plan and then I show up, I check in. If it doesn't feel good, I changed the plan. I used to be so rigid. It's like, I said I was going to do this, I'm going to do it. I said I was going to do this, I'm going to do it. But it's like things are always moving, they're ebbing and flowing, we're growing, right? And if you just stick to the plan, always, like, you can end up way off course, way off your course. I also find that this new method of operating that I teach my clients, the aligned flow method, it doesn't have them spun out like they've had 20 cups of coffee. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but sometimes some of this business stuff can get us so, just like our nervous system so intense, and the cortisol, and we're just, oh, you know what I mean? And I just find that my clients and myself, we're just so much more balanced, operating in alignment with our values and our beliefs. I also find that my clients are just happier. They just seem happier with their lives with this new model. I've been doing business and working as a coach since 2024. So I've worked with a lot of clients, and honestly, like the last 2 years, mostly year and a half, using like this new approach, I'm just like, wow. Part of me is like, oh man, we were like missing out. But part of me was like, we just didn't know any better. We had to go through things, learn and grow. I know I did, but it's like night and day. It's like intense, and it's like focused, aligned, calm, and so much easier to be successful, right? When you're in that flow, when you're in that rhythm. So shifting my business to align with my values. Number 7, so good. And number 8, opening up emotionally. And I have always been a sensitive little child, sensitive little being. When I was little, though, my parents, they really wanted me to be strong and tough and be able to take care of myself. And so they would make a lot of comments about not crying and not showing your emotions and being strong. And I think I really held on to that. I also think as I got older, I wasn't aware of the fact that we can experience and feel 2 emotions at the same time. And so I was always afraid that if I let my anger show or my sadness show, it would erase my joy. It would erase all of the happy moments, because I have had a really good life so far. I have a lot to be grateful for. And so I think part of me was like, oh, I don't deserve to be sad. I don't deserve to be angry. People have it harder. People have it worse. So I'm just going to bottle it up. I'm going to seal it away. I'm going to be strong, and it's all going to be okay. Well, it wasn't okay. We got to feel it to heal it. We got to feel our emotions. And so for me, I finally allowed myself to cry and to be upset and to let it out. And I think at first I was afraid of crying, because I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to take over my life. And it kind of did. If I'm being honest, I would have days where I would just be so upset and angry and just rage and be crying. And honestly, during this time, the weeks just flew by, and I went to the extreme, right? It's like I wasn't emotional at all. I was emotional. I just was shoving it down. So I wasn't feeling my emotions at all. And then I was feeling them so intensely that they were taking over my day. And that was not great, right? That's not how, we're operating to be at a functional level. That's not how we operate. It's just like not healthy, right? It's not healthy to be over there. I was so wrapped up in my emotional body. And so Through doing that, though, I was able to find the balance where I can cry and feel my emotions without letting them take over everything in my life, without them affecting my digestion, without them affecting my sleep, without them affecting my relationships, without them affecting my day to day. And I think that that is such a beautiful skill to have. And I'm so glad that I have that now, where I'm aware, okay, I'm upset. Okay, it's getting too much. I'm getting tangled and I'm getting wrapped in it. Okay, like I need to kind of like come back, right? I need to come back. I need to reconnect with my soul. I need to clear my system. I need to untangle my emotional body because it's too intense right now and it's taking over, and I need to unwind it. And learning how to do that, very grateful for that skill because it's come in handy so much. And I'm sure as my life goes on and I experience different things, I know it's going to be really powerful. And again, I think for me, I had to go from one extreme to the next so I could find that middle ground. And number 9, I learned to go with the flow and trust the process. I stopped considering something good or bad. If, something happened in my day that like I wasn't expecting, and in the past I would label it as like, this is so bad, it ruined my whole day. Like if that didn't happen, instead I just started trusting, oh, that happened for a reason. I wasn't supposed to do that possibly. I stopped judging myself. I stopped judging others, stopped hustling. And I just started seeing my day as opportunities for things to help me grow and evolve and experience life, and just really releasing this need to label things and also be more open to everybody's truth rather than having one truth. Oh, this is the truth. This is how business has to be. This is how healing has to be, right? It's like, no, everybody's healing experience can be different. Everybody's business journey can be different. No longer am I saying, this is the one way to do things. If you're not doing this, you're missing out. It's like, you're on your own experience and I'm on my own experience. And it's beautiful and we can learn a lot. And I'm sure there's some overlap, right? But instead of being like, that's wrong, that's right, I just kind of blended it all. And honestly, like so much less friction, so much more peace, just so much less drama. It's just like easy living. I learned how to trust the process and know that everything is unfolding exactly how it's supposed to. So I wanted to share a few other things with you. So during this time, inner work, again, the reason why this is called inner work is because it's our own inner work. The inner work that everybody has to do is a little bit different. Some of the things I said, maybe you've already experienced them, incorporated them, integrated them, so you don't need to anymore. But there's always something with inner work. There's always something that we can be doing. So one, I have an inner work quiz. Me and Peter created an inner work quiz to help you identify where you're at. There's 4 stages of inner work and where you're at. So you can kind of see, and also how to get started with it. If you're like, oh, I'm curious, like where I'm at. Oh, I kind of saw myself in number 6, or I haven't experienced any of these. The inner work quiz is really helpful. So that I'll put it below. And then I read a lot, a lot of spiritual books during this time. I actually run a spiritual book club Facebook group because I just find it so helpful. There's so many amazing teachers in the spiritual space. I love channeled text. I think it's really powerful. So I can do a video on spiritual books that have made an impact on my life if you're interested. I don't know if that's interesting to watch a video on that or not. Do we like it or not? Let me know in the comments. But if I was to recommend a book that was really helpful on my journey, at the very beginning of my journey, Living with Joy by Sanaya Roman, that was really helpful. It helped me relax. So good. As I progressed on my journey, The Surrender Experiment by Michael A. Singer, I think is his name. He also wrote Untethered Soul, which is very popular and also a good one. But The Surrender Experiment was very helpful when I was in the thick of it. And I was like, who am I? Where am I going? I don't know. That book really helped me release. It's like, oh, his life turned out real good, really good and really fun. And what a great story. That's another thing I think of often. I'm always like, it's more interesting if my life is in a straight path. Like, it's kind of boring to hear a story and it's like, I did this and then I did this and that was the end. It's like, no, I did this. Well, that didn't really work out so well. So then I went right, but I was supposed to go left. It's more interesting. So that book really helped me. And then as I progressed into different spiritual topics, I didn't even talk about this in this video, but living in the 3D world, more of like my spiritual awakening versus the 5D, books by Maureen Saint Germain, really good. One of my favorites for anytime weird stuff is happening on the planet. I like to tap into her work, and a book that I would recommend from her would maybe be Waking Up in 5D. That one was really powerful and good. So those are some books that I would dive into if you're curious about doing the inner work and healing and a spiritual perspective. Those are some good ones. If you've read them, tell people how great they are. So it's not just coming from me. And then Gaia. My clients know I'm obsessed with Gaia. I'm always doing like a new Gaia recommendation of the week, but it's like Netflix, but for spirituality, healing, inner work, galactic channeling, Reiki, meditations, tapping, like everything. It is a conscious media streaming service, and it is really great. This is not an ad. I just really love them, and they were really helpful. There's a time on my journey where I just felt hopeless and upset and sad, and watching that gave me a lot of hope and courage and inspiration. And so maybe it can do the same for you. If you are on a journey of growth and healing and inner work and working on your business, and your mind is telling you this is a waste of time, or I don't know where this is headed, I promise the inner work, working on yourself, it's never a waste of time. It will help you. It will help you help others. It will help your business. Your soul will be very happy. You will look back on this point in your life and be so glad that you spent the time doing the work. So I hope you like this video. And if you did, my friend, if you like it, that Peter tells me means other people will see the video. So you can like it. If you want to watch more from myself and Peter on inner work, business growth, spirituality, living your life purpose, then you can hit subscribe. Okay, until next time. Bye, friend.